Well, I've done it. I left my job. There's a lot of chatter going on about people leaving their jobs, whether it's on their terms or the company terms. And I want to talk a little bit about that today. Let me apologize in advance if my camera gets a little wonky and blurry. I just want to get this message out there, so bear with me. Let's talk about leaving a job. Now, I'm going to be honest, the intro was a little clickbaity. I haven't actually left my current job, but I have left a job in the past, and I want to talk about why I left, what was happening, and what you need to think about if you need to leave a toxic environment. So here's why I left. I was being told by my manager that my performance was not meeting expectations. You may have heard this too. The rules had not really changed. I felt like it was just an excuse. And as it turns out, I found out later that I was not the only person that this particular manager was targeting. Happy ending was that a few months after I left, he also got let go for misconduct. But whatever, we're not here to spread bad vibes about people. How it all started was I accidentally spoke over him in a Zoom call, and he took great offense to that. And it wasn't until much later till I found out that's what was pissing him off. And you know how it is sometimes in a Zoom call. It's a little awkward. You speak over people. You don't notice some people speaking up. It wasn't intentional. And if he had just communicated that with me, rather than going into this retaliation mode, I'd probably still be working there today. I found out later that's what pissed him off and set this whole thing out of control. He told me that I had damaged some relationships with people on the team. I don't want to do that. That's the last thing I want to do. So I asked him, well, who is reporting these damaged relationships? Because I want to make amends. I want to be working well with my coworkers. And he told me, I can't tell you that. Okay, if you can't tell me who I need to repair relationships with, what is the goddamn point? I'm never going to be able to work well with these people if I don't know who I need to work better with, right? Okay, so if you're not going to tell me who I need to mend these relationships with, what's a girl to do? I was talking to a friend of mine and she told me, you know what's happening, Jen? You are hunting ghosts. I was like, whoa, hunting ghosts? What does that mean? That was a new term to me. When you're hunting ghosts, you're trying to win, but the rules keep changing. The target keeps moving. You are hunting something that appears and then disappears. And now it's over here, and now it's over there, and you can't keep up because it just keeps popping up and disappearing. In other words, it's an impossible task. You can't ever actually catch the ghost. So that's what was happening with me. I was being set up not for success. Okay, so what was I walking away from? Well, a significant amount of money. The company where I work, they have these thing called chairman shares. And if you have a good year, which I had a good year every year, my performance was top notch every year, you get rewarded these chairman shares. And they take a couple years to invest. It's kind of like a little bonus, but you got to sit around for 2 years to actually earn them. Okay, so I'd earned some chairman shares in the past, and I just got rewarded some just a few months before this whole shit show started happening. And it was a lot of money. It was $32,000. That's a lot of a bonus to walk away from. But you know what? The environment was so toxic. I was not being set up for success. It was wearing me down mentally and physically, and I just had to get out. So instead of sticking around for another year or two, waiting for those bonus shares to vest, I had to get the fuck out. And that is what I did. I want you to think about a few things to keep an eye on to determine if you also need to leave a toxic work environment. Let's list some of these items. First, you have a bad instance, but it keeps repeating. We all have bad days, maybe even a bad week, but it shouldn't happen over and over again. It shouldn't go on for months and months with new problems popping up all the time. If that's the case, this might be a place that you need to get the hell out of. Also, there is not psychological safety. You don't feel like you can speak up and ask questions. Now, look, I'm a researcher. I ask questions for a living. And I was actually told at this job, don't ask questions, Jen. Can you believe that? I was told, don't bring your questions to us, only bring answers. Well, I don't have all the answers. I wish I was that fancy. And I was also told, don't be a troublemaker, Jen, when I was questioning the status quo. When you're in an environment like that, that might not be a safe place for you to be. I also was worried about retaliation. And I think that was kind of happening with this manager when I spoke over him in that Zoom meeting. And instead of confronting me about it like an adult and us working through it and me updating my behavior based on those learnings, he retaliated against me. He made me feel really bad. He left me out of meetings. That's another thing. If you are left out of critical communications and then later they make you feel like you should have known, that's a red flag that you need to pay attention to. There could be shit happening behind the scenes. You're being excluded because they don't want you to succeed. Pay attention to that. There was also a lot of blame culture. It wasn't really positive. If somebody did something wrong, they were blamed for it, even if they didn't do it. And I don't need to tell you how shitty that is. So if there's a lot of blame and no one's taking responsibility and nobody's making it kind of a group failure, that might be something that you pay attention to. Also, chronic overwork and the expectation that you almost need to be available 24/7. If I had a Teams message come in at 9 p.m., it was expected to answer that at that time or over the weekends. And sure, I get it. Sometimes jobs require this, but my job is basically a 9 to 5. I am not saving lives as a UX designer and researcher. It was not critical that I needed to be reached at night and over the weekends. And so if that expectation is there, you might want to observe that red flag and think about exiting at that point. I also am hearing a lot of companies who are micromanaging. They're monitoring your keystrokes. They're watching your screen, seeing what you're working on. I don't think that was a circumstance there. I don't know for sure. Maybe it was. But if that's something that's happening, that kind of surveillance is happening in your company, I don't know, man. That seems like a no bueno situation that you better get out. Also, if there is some favoritism or special rules for someone. So get this. I was a senior UX designer and researcher. And I was doing more research at the time. And there was another gal who came over into our department. She happened to be under this manager. And she got a principal UX researcher and designer role. She was above me, and she had zero experience in research and design. Zero. So you know what the expectation was? That I was to train her. Are you fucking kidding me? I need to train somebody who has zero experience, who's over me, getting paid more than me to do our job? Give me a break. Talk about favoritism. I hate this. This is bullshit. And if you're seeing this happen, that is another red flag. And then finally, if being in that environment is eating away at you, you're physically exhausted, you're mentally beat down, your emotional state is just crumbling, dude, it's not worth it. Trust me. Your physical and mental health are so important, and a job should not beat you down to the point that you're in tears. I'm telling you, there were many nights I would be coming off of meetings or ending the workday in tears. And my husband would be like, what is going on? I'm like, I don't know. It's horrible. And I don't remember the specifics of that day or that shit show, but I shouldn't be crying after a day of work. Okay, maybe once in a while something really bad goes on, but this was repeated. This was more than once. And this is not cool. You've looked at the circumstances, and there are some questions that you can ask yourself to say, should I get out of this place? I've told you some signs, and now I want to tell you about some questions that you should ask yourself to determine if you should get the hell out of there. These questions are personal to you. I can't tell you the answers to these. They're going to be different for everybody. But I want you to start asking yourself these questions and really think about your answers. So first, is this place harming my health or my sense of self? If it's making you feel bad about yourself, this might be a reason to go. Ask yourself, have you tried reasonable fixes, but nothing seems to work? Are you being asked to do disrespectful or unethical behavior? Look, everybody has a line of their own. You know what yours is. If you're being asked to do something that just goes against your morals or feels deeply wrong, you have the right to make that decision about whether you can tolerate it or if you need to move on. Is this a temporary problem or is this a persistent pattern? Like I mentioned, if I had just cried after one bad day of work, okay, that's just me maybe being a little drama. But this was happening over and over. This was a sign, a pattern I couldn't ignore anymore. Also, back to that idea of psychological safety. Is it safe here for me to speak up? Can I say when something is wrong or I'm not sure if that's the right direction? Or am I going to get gaslit because I went against the team or against the grain? If you don't feel safe, even for basic stuff, it's probably time to get out. And not only is it repeating, like it feels like a pattern, but has this been going on for a long time? Have you been feeling like shit about yourself for like 6 months, a year? Think about that. What is that doing to your mental and your physical health? Because it's eating away at you. Then finally, and this is a tough one, this is a very individual question. What am I going to lose versus what am I staying for? It's kind of that pros and cons list, right? What am I walking away from? And what am I staying for? Really important things to consider when you're determining if you should leave a job or not. And I'm not going to pretend that one of the factors that you'll be walking away from is a steady job and a steady paycheck. I mean, let's not pretend that that's not important, because it is. A steady job gives you a steady paycheck, health insurance, if you're in the US, paid time off, contributions to your retirement, 401k. These are all really important, and you need to think about, if I'm walking away from this job, I'm walking away from these things too. And can I afford to do that? These are really important considerations when you are thinking about, should I stay or should I go? I'm not making light of these. These are really important factors. Okay, so I talked about why I left and the things that were happening to me and the things I was considering and asking myself. But leaving a job is a big decision, and maybe you should not do it. So I want to talk now about reasons why you may not want to leave a job, other than the obvious steady paycheck and the steady job. So why would you not want to leave? My first one is maybe it's just a rough patch, but not really an overall toxic environment. It happens. You know, you might be expected to meet a big deadline or project feels really heavy, but this too will pass. And if that's the case, maybe it's not really necessary that you leave the job. Also, like for me, if you're having an interpersonal issue, is it fixable? I was not given the opportunity to mend those relationships. That was my, battle I had to fight. But there's a lot of situations that feel like you need to leave, but actually, are they fixable? Can you have a conversation with your teammate or your manager and really sort this out? Because a lot of times you can. A lot of it's around communication and being open about the problems and working together to come up with a solution to fix the problem. If you feel like there is evidence that things can change and change for the better, it might be worth sticking around for. And I'm going to admit that sometimes I can be really triggered and overreactive and think, oh my God, this is all so awful. And I'm being a little drama. I will admit that. So think about it. Is it you just being drama? Be real with yourself. Is it just drama for today, or is it really a big picture problem? I find it's helpful to step away, take the doggos for a walk, or maybe just sleep on it and revisit it tomorrow. Sometimes it's my own drama. I'm going to be real about that. So if that's the case, maybe this is not really the reason for you to leave a great job. And finally, along the same lines of that steady paycheck, you might not want to leave until you have your next step established. I will say that it is much easier to find a job when you're in a job. I have no idea why. I don't get that whole recruiting dynamic bullshit, but I have heard from multiple people, it's kind of known that if you are employed, you seem more desirable for some reason. I don't know why. It might be important that you establish that next step and that next job before you bounce out of this one. Now, I'll be honest, I was lucky. My husband had a steady paycheck and I could go on his health insurance. I had a nice little financial nest egg to hold me over for a little bit. I had a good resume with good work experience and work history. And I had a good portfolio that I got ready for those interviews that I was hoping to get down the road. I acknowledge that I was really lucky, and those factors were definitely important when it came to determining if I could leave this job or not. I guess because I am a fixer and I like things to work well, I guess the hardest part for me was coming to the realization that things were not going to get better where I was. I could not fix this problem. And that was really hard because I really value relationships with others, doing a good job, contributing to my team. And it was really hard to come to terms with that. This was out of my control and I had to move on. If you are thinking about taking the leap and leaving an unhealthy environment, I hope that this little video helped you think about a few things to help you come to the decision that is healthy and happy for you. Did you find anything valuable in this video? Let me know if any of these tips were particularly helpful for you in a comment down below. Until next time, bye.